Hello, and welcome to my channel. My name is Jonathan Cohn, and today I will be providing my ranking for Claudia Gray's 6 Star Wars novels that she has written. She has written 3 adult novels and 3 young adult novels, and I will be ranking all of them. Now, I should preface this by saying this is my list. It's just a personal list. This is my opinion. There is no definitive list out there, although I think mine is pretty good, and I will provide my reasoning as well in my video. But let me know what you think. If you have a list, let me know down in the comments below. Do you like her Star Wars work? Do you not? Do you think some of it's better than others? I think that she has a strength and a weakness. Let me know what you think. Also, let me know if you've read any of her non-Star Wars novels, and if you think I should give any of those a try. I know she primarily does YA, which is not really my genre as a whole outside of Star Wars, but I want to try more if I can. I want to branch out and read more genres. So, to begin this list, my number 6 is Into the Dark, the first young adult novel in the High Republic series. When I first rated this and reviewed it on my Goodreads back in when it first came out, I gave it a very good rating. And as time has gone on, I wish I had not given it such high praise. This was a book that just didn't connect with me. When the High Republic came out, we had the first 2 books, the adult novel Light of the Jedi, which was utterly fantastic, stupendous, one of the best novels I've read in the last couple of years for Star Wars. My favorite novel in the Star Wars canon, one of them, I should say. And then we also had A Test of Courage, which was the middle grade book, which I thought did a really good job. And then you had this book, which was YA. And after reading this book, I just felt like it lacked entertainment value. It felt more like I was reading. Yes, there was a main plot and a main focus in the story, and it was like genuinely well crafted, but I didn't have fun reading it. I felt like I was just doing a chore so I can get all my knowledge of the High Republic. It felt a little bit more depressing than some of her other books, despite having some really funny characters. Now, there are some standout characters in this book who we'll talk about in another book that's also on this list, but as a whole, I think this was a very meh book. This is, I think, her most forgettable entry that she's done so far. And so I think this is my number 6, my bottom one for her. My number 5, this is by far going to be my most controversial because I know everyone else puts this at their number 1. And since 2015 when this book came out, everyone's been talking about it, but I can't put it that high, and that is Lost Stars. This was the first Star Wars young adult novel to come out, and it was so surprising how little attention it got, sales-wise. This came out right alongside Aftermath, which got all the attention. Aftermath was the novel that told the story immediately after Return of the Jedi that most people didn't want, which I actually liked, but most people didn't want that story. It went in directions that were all kind of crazy and small, and yet this was a book that followed the events of the entire original trilogy, and at the end tells a little bit post-Return of the Jedi with the characters, and is really a romance and love story between Thane Kyrell and Ciena Ree, Thane who joins the rebellion, Ciena who joins the Empire. It's kind of the Romeo and Juliet star-crossed lovers type of story. And everyone loved it, and everyone went crazy for it, and I read the book twice, and I highly enjoyed it. But this book does a lot of choices that I don't like. There are certain things I don't want to see in Star Wars. There are certain things that I think that Star Wars has in its DNA, in the way that it's designed. For instance, even the adult novels from the Legends line and from a lot of the canon line up until more recently have been written in such a way that even kids could read them. There wasn't swear words, there wasn't sex, there wasn't anything like that. But unfortunately, this book introduces elements like swearing a lot more among characters and some sexual elements to it that really, to me, don't feel like they belong. It feels like this really is like a young adult novel as opposed to a novel written for young adults. And that really kind of bugged me, and really a lot of the young adult novels have done this, which is why it's not a genre in Star Wars that I prefer. I much prefer the adult novels or the middle grade. I do like the length. What they were willing to let her go really long with this book, which I did appreciate. But I did not appreciate a lot of the personal decisions she made. But I will say it is an amazingly crafted story, and some of the way that she pulls in the reader is really good. And I hope that they do make a sequel, because I really want to know what happens. So I still think it's a really good book. There's some things that just bugged me about it. Next, we get into my number 4, and this is The Fallen Star. This is her most recent novel. It is an adult novel. This one's published by Del Rey, not the Disney Lucasfilm Press. And this book published in January of this year, and this is a novel that has a very just safe feeling about it. Claudia Gray kills off a lot of main characters from the High Republic series that kind of saw coming. Some of them you don't see coming, and it feels very much in line with the other High Republic novels that have come out for the adult line, Light of the Jedi and The Rising Storm. I've thought that all 3 of the adult novels have done a really good job of feeling connected, of feeling cohesive, and that's something that a lot of the big series for Star Wars haven't always done. Sometimes they don't feel like one long story. Sometimes when you're writing a TV show, if you have 24 episodes in a season, some of the episodes are going to feel like duds because those writers just don't naturally blend in the right way. Well, so far, the writers for the High Republic series, on the adult line at least, are blending together really well. And I think that this one does that. I think it's the weakest of the 3 High Republic novels by a pretty good margin, but it's still an excellent book, and I highly enjoyed it. Now we're getting into my top 3, and my top 3 are mostly just me gushing about them because I love them so much. I think that all 3 of these books are in my top 10 canon novels. That shows how strong Claudia Gray is. I think that Claudia Gray is on par with Timothy Zahn in the effect she will have on Star Wars long term. I think that Timothy Zahn, because of the amount of novels he's written, because of the length of time that he's done, and because of the more historicity that he has, he will probably have more of an impact on the genre. But I think that Claudia Gray has, at least among the readers, will have quite a good impact as well, because I think of these 3 books, which I think are just amazing. I think they're fantastic books. My number 3 is Leia, Princess of Alderaan. This was one of the books that was part of the journey to The Last Jedi, but in all honesty, could have just been its own standalone novel, and would have had fun surprises for the last Journey to the Last Jedi. But what this book did was it took politics into young adult, added a little bit of a romance, and also just added Empire versus Rebellion, which is always fun to read in Star Wars. And for instance, my problem with the Queen's Hope and Queen's Peril and Queen's Shadow books is that they all feel juvenile, and they feel like they were told, okay, you can only write for this specific audience, and if anyone else is from another audience, well, they can just go away because they were writing for this audience. And if you don't appreciate the books, it's because you don't appreciate literature. And so I feel kind of that those other YA books that try to deal with politics just weren't done right. This book feels like if you're a little girl, you'll enjoy it. If you're an adult male, you'll enjoy it. If you're anything. This book is just an enjoyable read for anyone, and it's the least YA of the novels, which is why I think it works so well. It does have a very focused center of focusing on Leia. However, one thing the story does is it really expands out. Great characters show up. Bail Organa and Brea Organa show up. They have great moments. You also have great character moments among people like Tarkin comes in, and Amilyn Holdo, who a lot of people didn't like in Last Jedi. I thought she was great. She shows up, and she's basically Luna Lovegood in this book, which I really enjoyed. And so there were just so many things that just work so well in this book. And the way that Leia fails so often, it is this, they really got the, you know how The Last Jedi has the greatest teacher failure is. That is what I believe is the thesis of the film. It's a strong thesis. And this book gets that thesis because Leia fails constantly in this book. Time after time, she fails. And yet she learns from it and does better the next time. And so everything just worked for this book. My only problem with the book is that it should have been longer, and also I think that there were a few tonal issues with the book at a few certain small points, but those are minor issues. This is a great book. So now we're getting into my top two, and if you're using process of elimination, you probably know what these two books are, but you may not know the order. But my number two is Bloodline. This was the second book she wrote, the first adult novel she wrote, and when I read this book, I was like, wow, Claudia Gray can write. This book deals with politics, but in the more newer era, in the post Return of the Jedi era. And a part of me wishes this book didn't exist because they kind of left a lot open, and they would have had great opportunity to fill in that time with the TV shows they're doing now. But because this book came out, now they're kind of hamstrung. Oh, this book kind of establishes some of the history of the New Republic in some way, so you can't do certain things with these characters, can't kill off these characters, can't have this big war happen because this book says that this didn't happen. So there's a lot of issues with the circumstances surrounding the book, but the book itself is absolutely brilliant. The way that Claudia Gray was able to deal with Leia's kind of grief at the situation she was in, that she was having to be away from Han for her job, the fact that she had not told her son some important details about his life, the fact that she couldn't be with Luke anymore, her brother, the fact that she couldn't I don't know how to say it. The fact that she couldn't do certain things in her life because duty demanded it. And then there's some hilarious moments where I can just totally see Carrie Fisher looking in, like, making a snide remark on camera or something like that. There were great moments that really just felt like Carrie Fisher's version of Leia, as portrayed on the screen, particularly from the later films. And so I really enjoyed those moments. The whole plot line of them starting to hear, hey, something's happening in the Outer Rim, we better go check it out. And then you have the whole Rin Riven Die situation. You have Ransom Casterfo. The way that she writes political discourse, how there's the two wings, you have the centrists and the populists. The way that she writes those, the centrists and the populists could be interchangeable among American political parties depending on your perspective. And in this book, there is an obvious, this one's right and this one's wrong, but you don't know which one is actually the analog for today's society, which is really hard to do when writing politics. And that's why I love Claudia Gray's politics so much, is that she doesn't feel preachy. She doesn't feel like, oh, you believe this, therefore you're wrong. She kind of attacks things from all angles. The pest in this book to Leia, Ransom Casterfo, is kind of a character that just foils her at many moments, and he just has a very different perspective than her and from the reader, and yet Claudia Gray does a great job of making you understand him as a character and why he has his motivations and why he believes in more central power in the government and she doesn't. And so there's just some fascinating political discourse in this book with some great moments. There isn't quite the same level of action in this book that there might be in other books that she writes, but it still just has absolutely great commentary than any other book. So that's why this is my number 2. And you might have guessed it, but my number 1, this is one of my favorite canon novels. I think it was, I could reread this all the time. It brought back so many memories and so many feelings about Star Wars that I love, and that is Master and Apprentice. Everyone who is a big Star Wars reader that I know has read the Jedi Apprentice books by Jude Watson, and the first book was written by David Farland, Dave Wolverton, but mostly the books were written by Jude Watson. And there's this nostalgia that those books have. And this book is a very different book. This is an adult novel. Those were like chapter books. This book is a standalone. Those books were part of a series. But this book captures the nostalgia that those books had in the way that it tells an Obi-Wan and Qui-Gon story. Claudia Gray shows that she nails the character of Qui-Gon in a way that no other writer can. And she also does a really good job with Obi-Wan. And I really want not a sequel, because this book doesn't really have sequel potential, but another novel featuring Qui-Gon and Obi-Wan. The way that this book tells the master and apprentice dynamic of Qui-Gon wants to do well for Obi-Wan, but he feels that his decisions for himself are holding Obi-Wan back, and he has to struggle between those two opposing forces. It's really palpable, and it really shows why Qui-Gon had such a hard time letting Obi-Wan go, because he felt Obi-Wan wasn't ready, not because of Obi-Wan's fault, but because of his fault as the master. At the same time, Obi-Wan doesn't understand this because Qui-Gon has such a hard time communicating this, and so Obi-Wan feels like he's not doing well enough, and he has this desire to help his master. At the same time, Qui-Gon really doesn't follow the rules, and so he's kind of a rule breaker. He's kind of I will do what I think is good for the good of the Jedi and for the good of society, whereas Obi-Wan's no, you need to follow the rules. And there is one moment in this book where they basically, I think it's Yoda or Mace Windu who says this, but it's a really good line. It says, Obi-Wan's version of breaking the rules and rebelling as a teenager is to follow the rules to a T when he's around Qui-Gon, because he knows Qui-Gon hates having to follow the rules. And that was just a fun moment, and it encapsulates this book. There are also some great minor characters in this book that are really Claudia Gray-esque characters that would fit in anything that she writes, and they work in this book. They're not throwaway, they're very integral to the story. This probably has the strongest plot of any Claudia Gray book she's written. Obi-Wan and Qui-Gon are sent to this planet because there is some tension, and they're considering leaving the Republic, but they're not exactly part of the Republic, and they're also dealing with some threats on the Queen's life, and there's already a Jedi there, but he's already dealing with his own stuff. And there's the plot was really strong. This book has an amazing twist at the end. The twist in this book is brilliant. I was like, that's so cool. I should have seen that coming. And so I think this is just wonderful. Can't gush about this book enough. I've reread this book, I think like 2 or 3 times now, but it's just, it's so good. I love this book. And so that is my ranking of the Claudia Gray novels. I'm sure most people's ranking is different, but let me know down below in the comments section what you think. Do you prefer her adult? Do you prefer her young adult? Do you like them equally? Do you not like her Star Wars but like her other stuff? Let me know in the comments section down below. If you like this video, if you like Star Wars or tie-in fiction or sci-fi or fantasy reviews, please subscribe to the channel. Please comment on my other videos. Let me know your thoughts. I love communicating with people, learning what other people are thinking about books. And until next time, I'm Jonathan, and thank you for watching.